$50 billion just left the US Treasury market without triggering panic, headlines, or explanation. That silence is the warning. When money of this scale moves quietly, it is not speculation. It is strategy. For months, global markets have focused on one comfortable story. China is selling US debt. China is destabilizing the system. China is the threat. That narrative works because it gives the system a single villain. But while the world watched China exit loudly, another country exited silently, and far more dangerously. India left. For 30 years, India was the perfect participant in the dollar system. It ran trade deficits in energy, surpluses in services and technology, accumulated dollars, and recycled those dollars into US treasuries. Safe, liquid, politically neutral. Boring by design. That boredom was the foundation of American financial dominance in the global South, until late 2025. Treasury International Capital data confirms the shift. Between October 2024 and October 2025, India cut its US Treasury holdings by nearly 21%. Roughly $50.7 billion were liquidated. Holdings fell from around $241 billion to just over $190 billion. This was not seasonal, not tactical, and not temporary. It was the first sustained annual decline in 4 years. And it happened at the worst possible time. US Treasury yields were near 5%. Historically, when yields rise, foreign central banks buy. They lock income and stabilize markets. India did the opposite. It sold into high yields. That tells you the decision had nothing to do with return. It had everything to do with risk. India is not broke. Its foreign exchange reserves sit near record highs. The rupee is relatively stable. Liquidity is not the problem. Trust is. India is deliberately reducing exposure to a system it no longer believes is neutral. That loss of trust has a clear origin. February 2022. When $300 billion of Russian sovereign reserves were frozen overnight, a line was crossed. No court ruling, no warning, no appeal. A switch was flipped. In that moment, every non-aligned country understood the truth. US treasuries are not just assets. They are leverage. If you fall out of alignment, your reserves become a hostage. India paid attention. India is fiercely non-aligned. It buys oil from Russia, weapons from Europe, technology from the United States, and capital from the Gulf. That independence is its strategic core. But independence cannot survive financial choke points. Holding hundreds of billions in US treasuries suddenly looked less like safety and more like vulnerability. Because in a future crisis, sanctions, conflict, geopolitical pressure, those assets could be frozen instantly, not confiscated, frozen, rendered useless. At that moment, treasuries stopped being reserves. They became a kill switch. India's response was not dramatic. It was surgical. Money never disappears. When India sold treasuries, it moved that value somewhere else. Not into euros, not into yen, not into another paper promise. It moved into gold. Physical gold. To understand how serious this is, you need to understand India's history. In 1991, India faced a balance of payments crisis so severe it was days from default. To survive, the government airlifted 67 tons of gold to foreign vaults as collateral. It was national humiliation. For decades after, much of India's gold remained abroad, especially in London, convenient, tradable, embedded in the Western system. But convenient is not sovereign. Between 2023 and 2025, India quietly reversed history. According to disclosures and independent analysis, roughly 274 tons of gold were repatriated. In part of 2025 alone, 64 tons were flown from the UK to high-security vaults inside India. This was one of the largest physical gold transfers by a major central bank in modern history. By late 2025, more than 65% of India's gold was held domestically. That distinction matters. Gold held abroad is a legal claim. Gold held at home is power. Gold in foreign vaults can be frozen, leased, or politicized. Gold under sovereign control cannot. It is guarded physically, removed from Western legal reach, and outside sanction authority. India was not just buying gold, it was reclaiming control. At the same time, India accelerated new purchases. Total reserves approached 880 tons. Gold's share of foreign exchange reserves nearly doubled. The value crossed $100 billion for the first time. Look at the swap clearly. India sold $50 billion of unsecured paper debt and replaced it with a massive stockpile of physical collateral. That is not diversification. That is preparation. Central banks do not repatriate gold when they expect stability. They do it when they expect fracture. Gold does not rely on trust, it relies on physics. This aligns perfectly with India's broader strategy. India is positioning itself as a third pole in a multipolar world. Not Western, not Chinese. Independent. To play that role, India must be able to trade with everyone regardless of sanctions. That requires insulation from payment systems controlled elsewhere. Gold provides that insulation. India is already building parallel financial plumbing, trade settlement mechanisms in rupees, special accounts for partner nations, reduced dependence on dollar clearing systems. Volumes are small today, but infrastructure always starts small. The sale of treasuries funds this independence. For decades, the United States assumed a simple model. As emerging markets grow, they buy more US debt. Their growth subsidizes American deficits. That assumption is now broken. India is the fastest growing major economy in the world, and it is selling. China is selling. If growth no longer creates treasury demand, the funding model collapses. So who absorbs the selling? Hedge funds, leveraged intermediaries, proxy buyers, and ultimately, the Federal Reserve. Real money leaves. Synthetic demand replaces it. Fragility increases. India understands this. It is exiting before dilution accelerates. This is not anti-American, it is pro-survival. When a strategic partner quietly removes its wealth from your system and stores it at home, the relationship has changed, whether admitted or not. This is the signal most people miss. Central banks are voting with their balance sheets. They are decentralizing, reducing counterparty exposure, and preparing for a world where paper promises may fail. India did not exit treasuries for profit. It exited for sovereignty. Paper was exchanged for metal. Custody was exchanged for control. Yield was exchanged for survival. The quiet exit is complete. The protocol is active. And the smart money has already moved.